Hello and welcome to Hashtag Power Up, your weekly boost of virtual learning sponsored by the International Sunday School Department of the Church of God in Christ. And I'm happy to be back today. I'm Field Representative Patty Johnson from Baltimore, Maryland, and I will be serving as your host on today. As always, as you come in, greet us and let us know where you're calling or where you're checking in from, and so we can greet you. We want to give honor to our international presiding bishop, Bishop J. Ju Sheard, our international supervisor, Mother Barbara McCool Lewis, and our leadership here in the Sunday School Department, our international president, Dr. Mark Ellis, our visionary leader, and our field representative supervisor, Mother Cleolia Penix. You can catch us every Tuesday live at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, and 11 a.m. Pacific. Make sure if you have not liked and followed our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube page, make sure you do that so you can be alerted to whenever we are coming live on social media with our content. On today, we have one of our new family members in the Learning and Development section of the International Sunday School Department, dynamic young lady of Evangelist Merica Green. She's a native of Charleston, South Carolina, but she currently resides in Charlotte, North Carolina, where she is a member of Kingdom Builders Church International, Church of God in Christ, under the leadership of Superintendent Dr. Daryl L. Grant and Dr. Lawanne S. Grant. She received her BA in theology from Charlotte Christian College and Theological Seminary and her master's in education in adult education and training from the University of Phoenix. And she is currently a doctoral candidate of performance psychology at Grand Canyon University. She is a training specialist within her local government and the director of Christian education in her local church. She's an adult English to speakers of other languages educator and a certified DISC consultant. Evangelist Merica Green is a humble servant of God and simply desires to be used by him for his glory. Her life's mantra is to God be the glory. She is committed to living out God's purposes for her life in any way God chooses to use her. And just on a personal note, we have been working together over the past year in the learning and development section. And you know how it is when sisters in Christ get together. It's like we've known each other our whole life. I love her. She is a dynamic woman. I got a chance to sit through her class and the International AIM Convention this summer, and it was just wonderful. And we are excited to be a part of her presentation on today. So won't you please help me welcome Evangelist Merica Green.
Hey, God bless you, Evangelist Patty.
God bless you.
It is so good to see you. And I got to sit in your class too, and it was fire as well. Got a lot of good little tools to put in my toolkit. So thank you so very much. Certainly, we are excited to be here for Power Up. Just the opportunity to come and share just a little bit. I am excited to be here. Thank God for each of you and for our leaders, as has already been expressed, all of the leaders of our great church, our great department. I thank God for my leadership here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am blessed to serve the leadership of Dr. Daryl Grant, Dr. Lawanne Grant at Kingdom Builders Church International. And I am excited about that opportunity. Thank God for all of you. And we're going to jump right into it because we do have, as my former leaders in Colorado used to say, we have miles to go and not a lot of time to cover. So we're talking today about mirror image. And Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 17 says, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. And so I see my slides advancing there, and I'm not quite ready for them to be doing that. So there we go. And so So as we think about that scripture, iron sharpens iron, we need each other. We need each other. We can't do this thing alone. And so none of us really leaves home without looking in the mirror. I don't think most of us look in the mirror before we leave home. And there are things that we identify that need to be addressed. The mirror reflects for us what the world will see when we walk out the door, right? And so sometimes we miss something. Sometimes we don't quite see what is visible. It's obvious, but we miss it, right? And so we need someone to point out our blind spot, and we have to trust who's there in order for them to tell us, hey, your tag is sticking out, or maybe you need to, take care of your nose, or whatever the case may be. We have to be able to trust someone to tell us about those areas that we didn't see in the mirror. And so I like to call the disc, we're talking about the disc today. I like to call the disc a metaphorical mirror. It points out the obvious. It identifies the things that you didn't realize were there. And it also makes you understand you a little better, right? When I remember I was doing this at my workplace, and a gentleman said to me, he started crying. He said, I'm 52 years old and I always wondered why I do blah. And having that disc report kind of revealed to him why he does the things that he does. So we can go on to the next slide. When we consider the disc, DISC, the disc measures observable behaviors. It's a measure of our observable behaviors, and it asks the questions, are you more outgoing or are you more reserved? Are you more task oriented or are you more people oriented? And you see on the screen here, there are 4 quadrants that the disc is divided into: the D, the I, the S, and the C. Now, the D measures how you respond to problems. It measures your dominance, the degree of dominance that you have. My D is practically non-existent, but you'll see that in just a second. The I measures how you influence others to your point of view. The S measures how you respond to change. How compliant are you? Right? And then the C, I'm sorry, how steady are you? And then the C measures how you respond to rules and regulations that are set by others. Now that's how compliant are you. All right. So let's go to the next slide and take a look at some of the characteristics of each of these primary disc styles. All right. So we have the D, that's your dominance, right? The D seeks to have control. The D needs to be in control. Their strengths are administration and leadership, right? Their challenges are that they can appear to be a bit impatient, sometimes even bossy. If that D is overused, then it becomes, rather than a strength, it can become a limitation. All right. Some of their dislikes are inefficiency, right, and indecision. Sometimes I'm a bit indecisive. A D can't tolerate me too much, right? And then their decisions are that they are decisive. They get right to it. And then there's the I, that influencing individual. My I is extremely high. They seek recognition, right? Their strengths are that they are very persuading and convincing. They are very enthusiastic, always just bouncing off the walls, just excited. Challenges are that they lack detail. Now, well, I'm sorry. Okay, we lack detail and short attention span. Right, and then some of the dislikes, routine and complexity. Right, and then decisions are spontaneous. Now, I'm not very spontaneous, but those are some of the characteristics of an I. And then the S. S is more steady. The higher you are in the S, the more steady you are. Not really given to change. You will change, but you need a lot of time to prepare for the change. The S seeks acceptance. S likes to be accepted. S makes relationships that are deep and long lasting, that probably have been, ever since they were in preschool, right? They still have these friends. Their strengths are that they are good listeners. All right. They like teamwork. Some challenges are that S's can tend to be overthinkers, and some may consider them to be a little slow when it comes to responding, because the S needs time to think about their answer. They're not just going to blurt something out. They need to really consider. And then some of their dislikes is insensitivity, and their decisions are conferring. They like to confer. All right. And then that C, the compliant one, higher you are on the C, the more like you're going to stop at a yellow light if you have a high C. I'm running through the yellow. I'm like, come on, let's go. Get out of here, right? The C is going to stop at a yellow light because they know red is coming, right? C seeks accuracy. Like they need you need to run the numbers 12 times before you go sit down with a C. All right. Their strengths are planning and systems. Challenges are that they can be considered to be a perfectionist, and also quite critical. All right. If your answers are wrong, they may seem critical. They're not trying to be, but they seem that way. Dislikes are disorganization, and their decisions are very methodical. They like to think it through and analyze things. All right. So those are some characteristics of each of the primary DISC styles. We can jump on over to the next slide. When we consider the DISC, I like to look at this paradigm called Johari window. Johari window. These two guys named Joe and Harry came up with this paradigm. And it puts us into another 4 quadrants you see here. And these 4 quadrants kind of help to really help to explain you a little more. And I like to pair it with the DISC, and you'll see why in just a second. So with Johari window, that first quadrant is the open area. This is the part of you that you know and that you let others know as well. Now, of course, this window is going to look different depending on the relationship. But let's just say this is a relationship with someone that you are very close to, all right? The area that you let them know, it may be a little bit bigger than the area you would let me know, right? And so just understand this is a sliding window, if you will, okay? And then the next window, if we go down, the next window is the hidden area. Now, this is the area that you know, but that you choose not to reveal to others. This is your hidden self. Okay. And then there's on the top right, there is the blind area. This is the area that others can see, but you don't see yourself. This is where we need that iron to sharpen us. This is where we need each other to make it. Okay. We need people that we trust with our blind area that will tell us what they see. And then we adjust accordingly. And then that very last quadrant is the unknown area. That's the area that I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows, right? I get to learn it more as you reveal the parts of me that you see that I don't see. It opens up even more as I start to share myself with you even more. And it opens even further as I start to explore new opportunities that I've never explored before. And then my open area gets bigger and bigger. And so now, the trust begins to build even more because my open area is even more open. All right. So let's jump over to the next slide. Now here on this slide, I wanted to show you these 3 graphs. These 3 graphs show up in your DISC report. Now, you have the mask, the core, and the mirror. Now, these are my 3 graphs that came from my report. And when you look at it, again, like I told you, I like to pair it with Johari window. So now the mask, this is your public self. This is who you allow others to see. This is the you that they see on your job, they see in church. This is the you that you present in public. This is how you perceive the demands of your environment, right? And this may change depending on your environment, but how you perceive the demands of your environment is reflected in the mask. And this is how you believe that others expect you to behave and respond to those demands. So we're going to call this, in accordance with the Johari window, this is your open area. The mask is your open area. Now then the second graph is the core. This is who you are. This is your private self. This is who you are when you are under stress. How you respond when the pressure is on is your core. Just think about that, right? And so this is how you respond when there's tension and just stress. When those things are present, The core is how you respond. This is what you retreat to. This is your instinct. Okay. And so we're going to call this your hidden area, because it only shows up when you're under pressure. So when we look at your Harry window, this is your hidden area. All right. Now we get to the mirror. Now your report, your disc report really drives off of this graph, the mirror. The mirror, this is the graph on our reports that shows what your primary and your secondary disc styles are. All right. This is how you perceive your typical behavior. This is your own self-perception. Although at times we are unaware of the behavior we use with other people, this graph highlights your typical approach to people. And so we're going to call this your blind area, because this right here, this is just how you do, and you don't even think about it. You don't realize that it's there. This is just how you respond. Okay. And sometimes you need someone to point out again, what about you don't see. Okay. What is it that you don't realize about you? Understanding you better helps you in relationships. Much better, much better, much better. And it heightens your emotional intelligence. If you know how you behave and how you respond, then you can better self-regulate when those unwanted emotions show up. That's why the disc is a handy little tool. So now again, what you're looking at now are my graphs. They're all pretty similar. All three of my graphs are pretty similar. And that's not always the case, as you will see with our subjects that will be coming up soon. Similar graphs, though, indicate that there are few demands for change from one area of my life to the other area of my life. Everything is pretty much the same. No demands for change. It's important to note that if you see significant change or differences in your graph, that indicates that there's change or transition taking place in the different areas of your life from one thing to the next. And if the mask is different, remember, the mask is that first graph, the core is that second graph. The core is your instinct. It's who you become when pressure is present. If your mask is different from your core, then that means that the demands of your environment are forcing behavior that is not congruent with your core or your instinctive behavior. So when that happens, it can become kind of stressful if you're not careful. So it's important that you have the awareness that, hey, when I'm just chilling and I realize that things are different, but when I'm under stress and there's tension, I realize that I'm this way. These graphs helps you to understand that. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Now, this is me. This is my primary and secondary and my third disc style. This is my disc style blend, right? We went over the 4 different primary disc styles, but it's important to note that, first of all, there are no good or bad styles, right? The styles are all wonderful. And we are a blend of all 4 styles. And so my style blend is ISC. So I put a yellow background just because that's the color that we use for the I. The I is it. If you're higher on the I, you're more influencing, right? Some of the things that come out in my report, I just wanted to put here on the screen. I'm very people oriented, right? I'm reliable and I'm loyal. It just is what it is. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to boast about my loyalty, but if you're my friend, you know how loyal I really am. All right. And then I don't like confrontation, but I will handle it. I don't like arguing. I don't like people arguing around me. I just don't like confrontation, period. But if it comes, I'll handle it. I know that it has to be addressed. Okay. The greatest fear for my style, and for me, I will agree, is rejection in relationships. Greatest fear, rejection in relationships and criticism. These are things that you have to be aware of once you learn your disc style blend. It's important to know what your greatest fear is, because again, that helps with your emotional intelligence. I realized years ago that that I would kind of, if I felt like I was going to be rejected in a relationship, I started to sabotage the relationship before the rejection came. But it wasn't until I started to understand my own disc style that I learned, man, it's because I'm afraid of rejection in relationships. And so now I have to learn how to have the conversation as opposed to jumping the gun and terminating a relationship that did not need to be terminated. Okay, that's a whole nother story. So now, when I lived in Germany, I literally had to look in the mirror at myself. I was in the army, had to look in the mirror at myself, and I had to say, who am I? Can we go to the next slide? I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I had started doing things that, that were not congruent with my core. And I had to question, who are you? I don't even know you anymore. And I talked a little bit earlier and said, you have to have people that you trust with your blind spots. And so there were people in my life, people all around me, but those people were living a life that was not congruent with my core either. And so although they could see my blind spots, they didn't speak up about it. They didn't tell me, hey, you need to check yourself in this area, because it aligned with what they were doing. So when you are having people that are checking your blind spot for you, make sure that it's people who will give you a clear vision and a clear view of you at your core. I just wanted to point that out when we start talking about, who we allow into our core space and our blind spots. Everybody ain't gonna tell you. Okay, so now we're gonna have some conversations with some people. Can we jump to the next slide? And can we bring Miss Patty on so we can talk? So,
right.
Hey, Patty Cake, how you doing?
Hello.
So Miss Patty took a DISC assessment and she received her report. I just want to talk a little bit about your 3 graphs, Miss Patty, and some things that I pulled out of your report. Okay. You tell me if you agree with those things that were in your report or not.
Okay.
So Patty, we see your mask, your core, and your mirror. Mm-hmm. Now, your disc style blend tells me that you are an SC. So that means you're very high in the steady lane as well as in the compliant lane, right? So mm-hmm. You're an SC, and what that yields is a peacemaker. And when I saw your report, I said, oh my goodness, she is so totally a peacemaker. Like, your demeanor is just so calm and steady. I've never seen you get rattled or anything. Like, your pace and your voice is always just so soothing. Like, I'm about to fall asleep just thinking about it. Right? It's just so soothing, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we look at your mask, this is your public self. This is the you that I know. This is your mask. And so this explains why you feel so even to me, because if you look how tight your graph is, it's really close to the midline. Mm-hmm. And that means that you're not easily excitable in your environment. Mm-hmm. Now your core tells a whole different story. Miss Patty, you are deviating from your core in order to meet the needs of your environment. It's not a bad thing. It's just important that you recognize that is there. Mm-hmm. All right. Mm-hmm. And so we see your core and your mirror are very similar, right?
Yep.
And
yep.
So that's wonderful. But just be aware that in public you're a little different than you are at your core. Just make note of that and understand what those differences are. So a few things about you that I found in your report. You value close personal relationships, and you will often put the needs and desires of those who are loyal friends ahead of your own. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Sound like you?
Yep, that's me.
Yep, there go that mirror. See? The disc is a metaphorical mirror, right? Mm-hmm. And then you are even paced. You thrive in a peaceful, harmonious environment. Does that sound like you?
I would love to be in peaceful, harmonious environments.
Yes. So if you're ever there, you would thrive there. And then according to your report, your greatest fear is the loss of security and being criticized. Does that sound like you?
That sounds like me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you have a chance to look at your report? Is there anything that stands out that you wanted to just kind of say, hey, I noticed that it says this about me?
Well, it's so interesting because when you started going over the D, I said that sounds like me, like on a day-to-day basis, because most people say I will be extremely decisive. But it's really interesting that you said that mask, I'm very even keeled. Everybody that you meet that would know me would say that. Like I don't, even with my family, it doesn't matter what's going on. I'm not the person to get excited, extremely emotional. I'm very calm. I'm very steady. I'm like, okay, this is what's going on. What do we need to do to get through it? How do we mitigate it? So that's really interesting. But why then, like, if my mask is like that line and the core and the mirror are like the same shape, just like a little bit different, what does that mean? Because it says like steady compliant. I mean, what's that, right? Steady and compliant is my core, but then my mask is more tight, like across all four of them. So
Yeah.
what would be my blind spot, or what do I need to be looking for?
Oh, great question. So definitely remember now your mask is who you are in your environment. And the environment is whatever environment you answered your questions, whatever environment you had in mind. Most of the time it's the job, right?
Right, right.
And so your mask is how you respond to things in your environment,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
so I would say, Patty, it's important that you are not missing out on opportunities to speak up. um, you know um, I saw something in your report.
Mhm.
um, you tend to show anxiety when put in a situation where you feel obligated to make decisions that may negatively affect others. And so, does that sound true of you?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, well,
Yeah.
in the field that I work in, sometimes our decisions do negatively impact our employees, and sometimes, yeah, it does. It gives me a little pause.
Yeah. Yeah, and so just recognizing that, being aware that that is the case, and that could be, again, that lines up with you being a peacemaker and why your ribbon is so tight there.
Mhm.
And so you just want to make sure that you are aware of that, so
Okay.
that you're not trapped in becoming indecisive,
Indecisive
or
about, right. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, so listen, everybody, give Patty a hand
Thank
for
you. That was
participating.
wonderful.
Thank you, Patty. We can go to the next slide and bring up Pastor Rodney. Hey, Pastor Rodney, how you doing?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to see you, sir.
It's always a pleasure.
So I looked at your disc report, and I noticed that your three graphs are quite different as well.
Mhm.
Well, your core is quite different from your mask. Now, just like I shared with Evangelist Patty, your core is kind of tight around the midline as well.
Mhm.
However, I'm sorry, your mask. However, your C drops down a little bit more. So it seems like in public, I don't know, but just looking at that, it just seems like in public you may be a little challenging to rules and regulations that you yourself don't set. Not that you don't comply, but it just looks like it drops down to where to actually it's where all of the other ones are kind of a little bit below the midline. And so you just want to be aware of that.
Mhm.
Right? Don't do like I do. If the yellow light is stale, don't try to fly through it real fast. Just stop, because it's about to turn red.
That's right.
Right? But so your disc style blend is SI. You're an advisor.
Mhm.
And I think that probably it falls into alignment with you being a pastor, really. And so as an advisor, You impress most people with warmth, sympathy, and understanding. And I definitely saw that when I met you in person for the first time. Like, you're just like, everybody just flocks to Pastor Rodney, and you're going to say something funny no matter where we are. And so when we look at your report, there are a few things I lifted from there. I put your color as green because the S is green. And so let's just talk about a few things and tell me if these are true of you based off of your report. Okay. You prefer to work through problems by analyzing things that have worked in the past.
Correct.
That sounds true of you. Okay. You can easily find the silver lining in a difficult situation, and you typically enjoy the thrill of trying new things.
Absolutely correct.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. And then your greatest fear is the loss of social acceptance or change, especially in relationships.
Correct.
That sounds like you?
Yes.
All right. Well, good. Well, we're 2 for 2 so far. Was there anything in your report that when you saw it, you thought, man, I want to talk about this part?
Yes, I saw something that it said about me as an advisor. And it's interesting that my color is green and I'm wearing green.
Look at there.
Come on, somebody. It just ain't nothing in my wallet green. But look at here, and I got my green pen right there. There it is.
Wow. Look at
Come on. Now, I noticed it said that as an advisor, I want to maintain peace and harmony and will ask others for their opinions in decisions that will affect the group. But it says that advisors can be overly tolerant and patient with those who are non-producers in the workplace. I agree. That's one of my shortcomings, I believe, because I'm over tolerant. I guess as a pastor, as a husband and as a father, and I think it is the trait based on what my auntie told me. That's one of the traits of the Jones men in my family. We're over tolerant. We'll sit back. But then she expresses that one of our problems then is we tend to explode.
Oh, yeah.
Because
so it sounds like you have people in your life that you allow to reveal your blind spots already.
What does that mean?
That means if she was able to tell you, because you hold on to it, eventually the explosion is coming. That means that she's able to see that blind spot and pull it out to the forefront for you. So now you have awareness of it. Yeah. And now that you know, G.I. Joe said knowing is half the battle.
Come on now.
So now that you have an obligation to respond accordingly. Again, unwanted emotions will arise, but when you know how you behave in those emotions and as a result of those emotions, then you can better self-regulate, and that speaks again to your emotional intelligence.
Yeah. So, I was glad that she said it, because although it was not directed towards me, but she is an auntie, and all of her uncles are all of her brothers are my uncles, of which her oldest brother is my grandfather. So she was letting us know the men in my family, we tend to just let things ride. But and sometimes it's not good.
Pastor Rodney, I will say on the flip side of that, if you are overly tolerant for too long, then eventually you can be taken advantage of. Correct. And so you definitely don't want that. Any strength overdone can become a limitation. Good. So you want to be careful of that.
That's good.
All right. Can we give some love to Pastor Rodney? Thank you, Pastor Rodney.
Anytime. My honor and my pleasure.
All right. We got one more, y'all. We got one more. Can we go to the next slide? And let's talk to Lady Quinn. Lady Quinn, hi. How you doing?
I have so many questions.
Oh, boy. See, now she's an HR professional, so now I'm nervous.
No, it's amazing. Like what you said about my colleagues, where it was spot on. So this is amazing. Y'all, how blessed are we today? Okay, go ahead.
All right, so Lady Quinn, you see your mask here. You see how different your mask is from your core and from
Go ahead. All right.
And So now, when the mask, are you, I mean, when the mask and the mirror are significantly different, that could mean that there's like some change in responsibility, or change in job duties or something like that. That could be the reflection of that. Um, or it could just be that they're different, right? But your core is a lot like Patty's mask. At your core, when you're under stress, it looks like you become really even keeled. You just kind of, you don't allow things to frazzle you at your core when you're under stress. That's what it looks like according to your graph now. But your mask now, when you get into your environment where you things get a little different for you there, you become increasingly compliant, and you follow the rules to a T. You probably follow the rules so much that people are annoyed that they can't break the rules around you, but you go really high. You know what? That makes sense because you're an HR professional. Okay.
I'm an HR professional at work, and I serve at my church. My husband's a pastor, so you know,
See?
I think we typically in both of those roles, those are my primary roles. I think it's my job to remind people of things they may not want to be reminded of.
Yeah. Yeah. So that explains it there. When we look at your disc style blend, it's CDI. CDI, you're a chancellor. And so again, yeah, that makes sense. The roles that you're in require heavy compliance, and not only that you are compliant, but that you hold other people accountable to the rules as well. And so that explains that. um, so let's look at a few things that we pulled from your report and see if they are true of you. You're forward thinking and creative. Does that sound like you?
I try to be. I'd like to think I am, but I'm always open to, in case I'm not being forward thinking and I'm not being creative, I want, help in that regard.
Okay. All right. What about spontaneous in business and pleasure, but not haphazardly?
I think that's accurate because to your point about my two major environments, being in the church, in our church, we don't always have the luxury of time, and we need to come up with something that's good, but we don't have a lot of time to plan it or execute. And then same at the job, because you don't know how the environment's going to be. You don't know when the law is going to change. You don't know there's just too many, there's a lot of factors.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of forced to be, right? Um, what about your greatest fear? Now let's see if this is true of you, Lady Quinn. Being taken advantage of, or the loss of control. And by loss of
I
control, we don't mean that you can't control yourself. We mean that you're not able to say, put this here, do that there. Are these your greatest fears? Being taken advantage of and the loss of control?
we people present themselves sometimes to be different than they are in whether I'm hiring someone or whether it's a performance management issue. And then in the kingdom, we need the Holy Ghost to lead us and guide us. So someone may present one way, and then you find out all these other things, and you've helped them, or you've encouraged someone else to help them, and then they get hurt. So I always am very hopeful that people are who they say they are.
Okay. Okay. So you try to be open to them being truthful about what they say about themselves. But then what happens when you find out that they're not who they say they are? What happens?
It's disappointing. And then you have to be prepared to pivot, or still be prepared to minister the way God has told you to. But sometimes you questioned, did I miss something? Did I not hear what, did I miss what the Lord told me? Or did I misread something? Or did I not hear what, the co-founder of the company said? Or, whatever it is, you question things, so yeah.
Okay. So was there anything in your report that you said, man, I wonder about this. I need to ask a question about this one?
The three graphs being so different, um, especially my public self being so different from my core, so one and two, and then it looked like my perceived self, which was similar, but the needing of acceptance or the ability to listen or work with others or follow through, or I'm sorry, the being oversensitive, the challenges. I'm thinking about the challenges of the S area because
Mm-hmm.
that's the what did you say? It's off the main line.
Yeah.
So I was kind of looking at how they look similar, but the S dips a lot in the public self.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I try to give off that I'm not concerned with others, whether I am or not. Is that one interpretation of that?
So the S measures how you respond to change. And so with your S dipping down very low, that means that you're not as reluctant to change. If your S is really high, you're more steady, you're more reluctant to change. They can't spring stuff on you. But with your S dipping below the midline, then you're a little more fluid, if you will, right? If they say things are changing next week, you're not going to throw a tantrum about it. Whereas someone that's higher on the S, you need to give them at least a month to prepare mentally for the change that's coming. So, does that help?
Yes. And then I asked a question in the comments, so we'll get to that during Q&A, but I love in the report how it has the communication tips and the communication with others. And then
Mm-hmm.
in my section, I liked how it told me what I need to hear to make a decision, but I don't need to give that same information to someone else. I need to like filter it or change it because that may not be what they need to make a decision.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's important to know, Lady Quinn, and this is our last slide. It's important to know that um, when you're communicating with someone else, they may not know the disc language. You've been introduced to this new tool that helps with communicating. And so they may not know the disc language, but you do. And so with the tools that you have, now it's important that we embrace Proverbs that says, as much as it's possible, live at peace with all men. And so now that you have this new tool, you can, and a little bit more about the styles, you now are able to kind of change how you interact with individuals based off of what their style presents as. So can we give some love to Lady Quinn? Can y'all clap it up for her? She listen, all three of them have been vulnerable and allowed their graphs and a little portion of their disc report to be shared on today. So we thank y'all for being vulnerable in this space. So that's all that I have as far as the presentation part. But again, it's important to understand that the DISC is a measure of observable behaviors. Once we understand how we behave and how we react, it helps to better influence our interactions with other people. And then we start to form better relationships. So thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, those of us that are watching, let's do our virtual claps for our presenter, Evangelist Green. This was absolutely fantastic, um, very informative, and I could really see that this is something that, even though it's generally a marketplace tool, that is definitely needed in the church. It's definitely needed in ministry and on leadership teams and how you interact and how to communicate. I agree with you, Lady Quinn. How my style communicates with the other style, I was like, oh, that's going to be really good because as I was reading, I could picture people, with those behavior, like, oh, okay, all right. So I'm really hoping that this is going to, improve, help me improve as well. So if you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comment. We do have a few. So this was my question because as I was reading this, I remember taking this years ago, and I was a very strong D,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dominant, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then I was very kind of surprised when I saw that now I'm a strong S. And I'm like, that don't even, but as you were talking, I was reading, I was like, yeah, that is me now. So does your disc change over time or with different situations?
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that is me now, because the truth of the matter is, our disc can change. Different life situations can change our disc and how we respond to
Mm-hmm.
situations. Right. I was not always a high I, right, but now I am, and I think I forever will be. Um, but but just life changes can really affect what our disc style is. The birth of a child, the death of a loved one,
Right.
a promotion on our job, new responsibilities, just different dynamics in
Mm-hmm.
life definitely can cause your style to change.
Okay.
But overall, even in the midst of those things changing, your core should remain pretty steady
Okay.
throughout. Your core, because that's what you fall back to. That's your instinctive style.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the mask could change, because again, what environment are you thinking about when you're taking the assessment? That influences what the mask is. You may depending on your job, you may need to be a strong D, but
Right.
then at church, you may need to fall back and not be such a strong D. So it
Right.
just depends on your environment.
Mm-hmm.
But again, your core should always be
Kind of stays
pretty similar, unless you have those dramatic life changes.
wonderful. It looks like Sister Harvey. Oh, that says Hunter says that she may have missed this, but how can Christians rekindle with others in ministry when others don't understand their disc style?
Yeah, again, everybody is not going to know the language, right? But once you've been introduced to it, you kind of know what to look for in those styles, right? I know that if someone is overly talkative, and they don't mind being out front, they always have an idea about how to make things fun and how to be interactive and things like that. I know that individual is a high I. And so if I'm more of an S style, really steady, kind of slow pace, the I is a little too fast for me.
Mhm.
But I have to be able to kind of flex my style to their style in order for us to kind of meet in the middle. And if they don't know the language, if they are not bending, because everybody is not bendy. If they're not bendy, you may have to bend a little bit more in
Mhm.
order to meet them where they are. Now, that's not saying to be overly tolerant, Pastor Jones, but it may require just a little bit of bending, a little bit of giving, so that you can start to feel the benefits of taking in return. So, as far as rekindling, um, I think rekindling requires both parties in order for there to be a rekindling. But in order for an individual to turn their heart back in favor with someone, that's an individual thing, and it really just requires you to be willing to concede to their disc style. Someone that's a very high D has always intimidated me until recently, only because I'm not a very high D. And so that sometimes it comes off as overly aggressive, overly bossy, and like I'll shut down with that. But I have to flex my style to understand, okay, this is just someone who has a high D, and they're very strong in leadership, and they make decisions quick, and they're ready for the decision to be acted on quickly. And so you just have to be willing to respond in accordance. And like both Lady Quinn and Evangelist Patty said, once you see the full report, the report, or if we can sit down and talk, whoever asked that question, we could talk about how to communicate with the different styles, because there is a way. Me as an S, how I should communicate with me as an I'm sorry, how I should communicate with someone who's an S. So
Lady Quinn, I hear the next workshop. I hear the next hashtag power up for Evangelist Green. So
Absolutely. Her schedule she's a lot of demand, but we are very excited to welcome her back. on the next one, we have a Dr. Loading here. So, you know,
Yeah.
absolutely. He is going to be a multi-time presenter. I think we have one more question. Sister
Yes.
Michelle asked, how can she take the disc? So Sister Michelle, we're gonna put up Evangelist Green's contact information. She has a website and an email. Um, and so it's there. We'll probably try to keep that handy, and it's in the comments. So for anyone who's seeing the replay, we're live now, but if you're seeing the replay and this is in the future, please contact Evangelist Green directly. She can set up time to consult with you. She'll email with you or talk to you, or however y'all work out. Y'all, I said y'all. I just said it. There you can reach out to her directly. She does this as a consultancy, and you heard how well she walked Pastor Jones and Field Rep Patty and myself through a portion of our report. So imagine what she can do with much more time, and go through your blind spots. You taught us about that new paradigm,
Hmm.
and you can trust her with your blind spot. I'm a witness. You can trust her. So I'm so excited. This was great, right, y'all? Back
Uh-oh.
into your hands because I'm not hosting, so I should stop talking.
No problem. So Pastor Jones wants to know, are some of these traits passed down through your bloodline?
That is a great question. I would say no, because really each person is who they are at their core, right? Um, as far as things that we see similar in families, a lot of it is because we are shaped by our past, right? And
Hmm.
so what we are in influences us, and so the family that we are in influences our behavior and how we respond to things. It shapes the lens through which we see the world. And so as a result of that, you may find similarities in families as far as the disc style. But I can tell you right now, I have a twin sister, and she is nowhere near a high I. Like there's no way in the world, right? She's probably a very high C, where my C is there, but it ain't all the way up there like hers would be. And so it's just it really it helps to shape who you are, but there are so many other things that feed into who you become and what your disc style is. We do actually have a disc profile for youth and for teens, and that helps with family dynamics and understanding that all of your children are not the same, right? And so just understanding how to communicate even with your kids based off of their disc style blend. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So again, this was a wonderful presentation, very informative, and I'm encouraging all of you to share this hashtag Power Up and connect with Evangelist Green, to take the disc and get your own report, or your church team can come together, your business team can come together, and I'm sure that she'll be able to work with you to push this. I think it's very important, especially in these changing times that we're in, because the world. I read something this week. I think it was by Corey Niehoff that said the world that we know will never be. The world that we're in is not where it is, where it's going to be. And so, kind of having that self awareness can kind of help you in this sort of fluid time that we're living in, as things are changing very fast. The world didn't change as fast as it's changing now.
Mm.
6 months from now, we may be shut down again and back in working. So I think having this information is really going to help you, and I believe it's really going to help me. As you lead, and not only lead, but as you follow. I really see this as a way to help you be even a better follower and following your leaders. So I, that's just me, and I can talk forever. But thank you so much, Evangelist Green, and thank you all for joining us on today. We've had a little extended session, but I think it was very much worth it and valuable. Please join us next week in hashtag Power Up. Again, we're at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific time. And we want you to come back and join us again for another boost of virtual learning here at Hashtag Power Up. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Hashtag Power Up is part of the Learning and Development arm of the International Sunday School Department of the Churches of God in Christ. We invite you to sow into this ministry. Your gift in any amount will help us continue to share leading edge biblical educational solutions and leadership tools to churches, districts, missions, and jurisdictions of all sizes. Along with our president, Mark Ellis, we are aiming to continue to reach, teach, minister, assimilate, build, and involve people for the furthering of the kingdom of God. Furthermore, we want to eradicate biblical illiteracy. Your gift in any amount makes you part of this effort as well. God bless you in advance for your gift. We pray that the Lord richly blesses you.